The more I look around, the more I realize the reason artists are making it big nowadays isn't because of their talent, it's because of their followers and views. The world is full of artists who put more work into their appearance, trying to stand out with their clothes and haircuts rather than their actual music. And to be fair, in this age of social media, that's exactly what an artist needs to do if they want to make it big.
But I think it's really lame how everything else in music matters more than music. We're talking about haircuts and the color of your clothes, not how to make a bridge, not how to make a clean transition, not how to make your mixes more interesting. We're talking about clothes and haircuts. That's what it takes to make it in music, is your clothes and your haircut.
Artists will blow up quicker than ever before from a viral moment, but then be forgotten about just as fast. In 2025, it's rare to find an artist who puts their music first, but when you do, it's like finding a pot of gold.
Like I'll do anything that gets me inspired, anything that kind of like that puts me in the, causes those lightning bolts, you know.
I'm that obsessed with coming up with a new, with like finding a new song, like making a new song. Because making a new song makes me feel like nothing else in the world. There's no other feeling in the world that I get from the feeling of starting a new song that I think has great potential.
It's kind of the thing that I spend the most time thinking about and like imagining. If I'm ever just, you know, stressed or like even like watching movies, like I find myself just playing the drums in my head when I'm watching movies.
If you were to walk by Kevin Parker on the street, you probably wouldn't notice him. He doesn't seek attention. In fact, he tries to blend in to go unnoticed. But behind the shy smile, he's a musical genius that has impacted an entire generation. In a world full of glorified pop stars and rappers flexing their money and fame, Tame Impala fans found someone who they could actually relate to. Someone who shared their struggles with self-doubt, loneliness, heartbreak, and anxiety. But before we got here, Kevin would go through a lot.
Was I lost as a teenager? Yes, but I had a kind of an interesting upbringing. So probably most kids in the part of the world I'm from. I also don't know how much of that was the fact that I was a teenager and I was just super emotional anyway. Like, you know, I have no way of telling if I was just emotional because I was a teenager or if my family was really fucked.
Growing up in Perth, Australia, when Kevin was just 3 years old, his parents got a divorce. Kevin's father would be the one to introduce him to music.
My dad was kind of a musician by hobby. Like loved music, loved playing music. He played like a cover band, just playing kind of 60s, you know, Beach Boys, Beatles, Rolling Stones covers. And so he would always have sort of guitars and stuff lying around the house because he would always have music playing in the car. In fact, it's weird because there's this one song that I have this memory of always asking him to play. And I remember there was, every time I heard it was like, you know, I must have been about 4 years old.
And by the time Kevin was 11 years old, he would start experimenting on his own.
And then we had this little keyboard sitting in the room as well, like a little Casio kind of thing. And one day I was kind of just playing along to myself, playing drums with the cat. Like I didn't even know how to play. I was just hitting random notes, you know, it sounded like a nursery rhyme probably. And then I noticed in the room there was a second cassette deck with the same thing. So I stuck the mic into that and recorded myself just hitting these keys over the top of me playing drums and listened back to that tape. And it was me playing keyboard to myself. It was me playing two things at once. It blew my mind.
As he got into his early teens, Kevin began developing a music taste separate from his father's.
But yeah, I mean, Nirvana, and then it was kind of just a cascade of Smashing Pumpkins, Silverchair, anything with distorted guitar, anything with drop D tuning. But there was always the kind of part of that music that was kind of, it wasn't just like angsty. It was, I kind of discovered the emotion in it.
The rebellious narrative of the grunge music he was listening to began to manifest in his own life as Kevin began smoking weed and shoplifting. Naturally, his relationship with his father began to dwindle. Friends, school, family, and pretty much everything else sort of began to fade into the background as music became the focus in Kevin's life.
As soon as I was a teenager, I started music became a big part of my identity, and it was a big part of finding what I liked and no one else does. It was very much became who I was.
I had grandiose dreams of being a rock star.
However, when Kevin was 14, his parents decided to try again, bringing a family of 5 together for the first time. But when things were just starting to look bright, they split once again, both of them returning to the spouse they had just left, seeking forgiveness. And the tragic thing was, neither parent wanted Kevin and his brother to come back home with them, as they were attempting to reconcile the relationship they had just left. So with no place that felt like home, and nobody he could truly rely on, Kevin began using music as his escape.
If there was a tense, situation or environment around me, I kind of just sort of play music in my head.
I was just doing music all the time. I never did any homework. I just spent every night in the garage recording some music.
When Kevin graduated high school in 2005, he started a band called the DD Dums, and they started gaining some local momentum, playing gigs around Perth. The band moved into a house called Troy Terrace, which was a filthy place filled with other aspiring musicians and bands. You'd walk around the house and there would be music gear laid out all over the place, with bands jamming out in different rooms 24/7. Kevin would eventually rename the DD Dums to become Tame Impala. Its members included Kevin, Dominic Simper, Jay Watson, and later Julian Barbagallo.
We were playing songs that I'd written for us to play live, and they were different to the ones I was recording at home that we even had on MySpace. It took a while for the two worlds to kind of converge.
Kevin enjoyed recording songs and playing them with the band, but his true creative expression came out when he was alone in his bedroom.
Because I just didn't know how to translate what I was kind of doing at home and expressing on my own. Because that music was super kind of, I guess sensitive is the word, and kind of nuanced and genreless. But the music I was making in bands, music was more kind of what we had listened to as a group, kind of more angsty, heavy kind of stuff.
The four of us, the band Tame Impala with 4 people, we've never all stood in a studio at the same time. And I never had the need to collaborate with anyone. I never really felt I just got used to making all decisions myself. And so when I started playing in bands, the idea of collaborating was always it was always a bit of a compromise.
Kevin began uploading songs he made by himself to MySpace under the Tame Impala alias, appearing as a band, when in reality, it was just him. He never wanted the solo spotlight, and he believed that appearing as a band would be more appealing than trying to make it as a solo artist.
They're all just songs Kevin's done on his 8-track and recorded pretty much all the instruments for at home by himself, and I play something on a couple of them, keyboard.
Kevin records everything and has always recorded everything, even before the concept of Tame Impala being a band was about. It's Kev's recordings that got picked up and all that, and then him saying he's gonna play the songs, and now we sort of appear as a band to the outside eye.
Yeah, when we're touring, it's a band. We definitely feel like a band while we're playing.
Yeah.
Kevin recorded music for years by himself, but you can't exactly get a gig calling yourself Kevin and playing songs by yourself. Well, you could, but it'd be boring. So he always had a band.
In late 2007, an A&R from Modular Recordings was blown away when he heard Tame Impala's Half Glass Full of Wine on MySpace, The label instantly signed Tame Impala as a band and released Kevin's bedroom recordings as an EP. Little did they know, it was just Kevin behind it all.
In fact, the record label, when they signed us, didn't even know we were didn't know it was me that was playing drums and guitars and bass and multi-tracking. Like I outright lied to them when we met up. Like the contract that we signed was for 3 of us. I think, because I didn't want to say it was just me, you know?
Glenn Gertzer, an A&R who discovered Kevin's music, didn't believe in the band because of their following or brand image, as they didn't really have one at this point. Rather, he was moved by the actual music and its rawness and emotion that Kevin poured into it. The label wanted to move quickly, so they presented Kevin with a list of star producers to record Tame Impala's debut album, but Kevin would decline them all. He didn't want to work with any polished producer. He didn't even want to go to the studio. He knew that he did his best work when he was isolated from the world. He needed a space where he could feel safe expressing himself and bring his true creative ideas to life.
Basically said to the record label, I was like, just find me a shack on the beach. Because they were like, who do you want to produce your album? Do you want like Dave Sardi or, you know? And I was like, I'm going to do it myself. Just use that money on like, just buy me just rent me a house, on the beach for like a month, and I'll do the album there. And that's what they did. They found me Jody, my manager, spoke to someone who knew about Wave House, which is kind of like, it's this now legendary, place. And it has this big natural amphitheatre where they had raves in the 90s. It's this place down south from Perth, my home city, that I actually ended up buying during the pandemic. Because it's kind of like this rickety old, sort of house on the coast. It's just completely remote. It's been my spiritual home since the first time I went there. For me, it was always this like sanctuary. So peaceful, and like all I could hear was like the sound of me playing drums and like birds tweeting outside.
The Wave House was the perfect place for Kevin to draw inspiration, and he began recording Tame Impala's debut album. When things were really starting to look great for Kevin, he would face yet another roadblock. In 2009, while Kevin was working on the upcoming project, his father tragically passed away from skin cancer. Kevin's relationship with his father was a complicated one. They had bonded over their shared love for music when Kevin was very young. But as Kevin got older, their relationship became more shaky. His father and mother would often get into fights, and some of Kevin's lyrics even point to the fact that his father may have actually cheated on his mother. One night when Kevin was a teenager, he was smoking weed with his friends and got sent home in a cop car, which only strained the relationship with his father. His father wanted him to get a college degree, and when Kevin started to pursue a career in music, he strongly urged against it.
Yeah, well, he was a musician himself, like just as a hobby. And he basically warned me, don't pursue music as what you do for a living, because he loved music just as much as I do, for how magic it is and mysterious, And he basically just said, like, if you do it as a living, it'll ruin the magic,
Despite his father's advice, Kevin would go on to finish Inner Speaker, never receiving closure with his father, which deeply scarred him. This would turn out to be a recurrent theme throughout his discography. All the anxiety and pain from his childhood, combined with the passing of his father, was what Kevin poured out onto one album, Inner Speaker. This was Tame Impala's debut album, released in 2010. The album revolves around introspection, solitude, and Kevin's anxiety, giving us a look into his mind for the first time. While listening to the project, it'll bring you back to the old school psychedelic rock era, but Kevin combines this sound with newer, polished breakbeat drums, synthesizers, and other modern sound effects. The track list includes some of Tame Impala's most treasured songs by fans, such as Alter Ego, Desire Be Desire Go, and Solitude Is Bliss. But my personal favorite is the opening track titled It Is Not Meant to Be. Kevin's angelic vocals come in, a minute and a half into the track, singing about a girl he wants badly, but unfortunately realizes that she'll never love him back. As the track comes to a close, Kevin uses the last 3 lines to mourn his father's singing, and I thought they could cure his disease, but in all honesty, he didn't have a hope in hell. Now we'll never see him move. Inner Speaker is my favorite Tame Impala album, and honestly, might be one of my favorite albums of all time. It just feels so real as Kevin shares the built-up emotions that he had throughout his upbringing and now with the passing of his father. I also love how the production on the album isn't so polished like so many projects you hear today. Throughout the project, there's fuzzy, strange guitar distortion, a lot of reverb, layers of improvised soloing, and spacey guitar jams that go on for minutes on end. Kevin's vocals also aren't really mixed in and sometimes sound a little too quiet. The reason for this often being because of Kevin's own self-consciousness.
At the end of the day, I always bury the vocals because I'm self-conscious about like what I'm saying or the sound of my voice, because I hate the sound of my voice.
But ultimately, the imperfections are what make the music so great. And for these reasons, Tame Impala began to build a serious following after Inner Speaker. They would go on to tour in America, opening for MGMT. The funny thing was, everybody thought they were a band, ignorant to the fact that it was all Kevin. Despite seeing vast success, Kevin was far from finished. From 2010 to 2012, Kevin would tour with the band and then come home to Paris, where he lived with his girlfriend.
I was pretty much just recording most of it in a room next to my bedroom for the last sort of 2 years or whatever. And so yeah, we go on tour and stuff, and I'd come back and just go back into the studio.
Although Kevin was now a star, nothing had changed. Music was still his primary focus in life. It was still his deepest obsession.
Just like allocate a 2-month or 3-month period for doing it. But because I just had it in the room next to my bedroom, it would just be like all day, every day.
And this time around, Kevin was not holding back.
I think this time I just wasn't afraid to just take it to the extreme, or take whatever I do to the extreme.
In 2012, Tame Impala released their second album titled Lonerism. The album cover and title set the stage for the theme of the album as Kevin continues to invite us into his world of isolation. The album cover perfectly represents the point of view of an outsider who feels like they don't fit in, and this was the entire concept of the album. Kevin explores the tension between craving connection and feeling inherently detached from others on songs like Why Don't They Talk to Me? And for the generation of young adults who are more lonely than ever before, the message really connected. Musically, Kevin still ran with the old school sound that so many had loved on Inner Speaker, but he blended it with more modern electronic textures. Cleaner and more propulsive than Inner Speaker, Lonerism builds on Kevin's lo-fi guitars with more synths, samples, and experimentation. These two albums had cemented Tame Impala's name in psychedelic rock, but no one would be prepared for where Kevin would go next. On Tame Impala's third studio album, Currents, released in 2015, Kevin ditched the psychedelic rock sound and made an album that blended R&B, synth pop, disco, and psychedelic funk into one.
I mean, like, it was always music that I was into, but just music that I'd kind of shied away from making because I figured, like, my world was weird, expansive psych rock. And, like, if I tried to do more clean, focused pop kind of stuff, I assumed it wouldn't work. You know, so Currents was the album where I'd kind of, like, just went, fuck it, I'm going to try it, you know.
And when Kevin finished the project, he didn't really like it.
It took me a while to like believe people when they said they liked Currents. Like I honestly thought everyone that told me they liked Currents was lying. And I thought like reviewers were just being nice because they felt sorry for me. So for that reason, I didn't really get to enjoy the release of Currents. Like I didn't allow myself to enjoy it, and I've told myself I won't make the same mistake.
But despite his self-doubt, the album was a massive success. It went on to be Grammy nominated, and Rihanna even asked Kevin if she could do a cover for one of the songs. Kevin knew by going with a new sound, he would lose many fans.
Third one is the one where I was kind of like I knew that there would be fans of the first two that turn their noses up. Like, I was ready for that. Do you know what I mean? I was kind of like, I decided, you know, kind of definitively that I wanted to change my sound, and I knew that some people wouldn't like it.
But the thing is, a true artist can't stay the same forever, and it's healthy for their sound to evolve. Unlike many artists who let their fan base trap them into one sound for their entire career, Kevin didn't let anyone's opinion determine his creative process. And this is what separates him from most artists. Currents was an album about change, acceptance, and personal transformation, often interpreted as navigating a breakup and the aftermath of self-renewal. The album contains Tame Impala's most popular songs based on the numbers, with Let It Happen having nearly 700 million streams and The Less I Know The Better having nearly 2 billion. At this point, Tame Impala was thriving.
Tame Impala.
Recorded and mixed by auteur Kevin Parker, Currents is Tame Impala's third hugely successful LP.
Winning awards, going on tours, and being invited on talk shows. It was everything an inspiring musician could dream of. But Kevin wasn't thriving. In fact, he was dying on the inside. You may be thinking, how could a musician become depressed after reaching this level of success? Well, not everybody's the same, and for Kevin, being world famous meant he couldn't really escape and be alone anymore. People expected him to be the rock star, life of the party, but that just wasn't who he was. After Currents was released, although it seemed as if he was on top of the world, in reality, Kevin entered a very dark period in his life, one full of drugs, depression, and self-doubt. Because of this, we wouldn't get another Tame Impala album for a while. In the meantime, Kevin collaborated with artists such as Travis Scott and Kanye West, producing songs Skeletons and Violent Crimes. It was during these studio sessions where Kevin realized what he needed to do in order to record his next album.
Like, the energy in a room when you're working with other people, like, you know, I started working with Travis Scott, someone like that. Like, the energy in the room is just so electric, you know? And I was like, hey, I can have that energy on my own too. I just have to embrace it, you know? And so then the way I started working on the album again was by like pretending I was in a recording session with a bunch of other people, you know, staying up late, just getting drunk and stoned, you know, and kind of just having a party by myself.
Kevin took that same energy he had felt when he collaborated with those other artists and combined it with his own solitude. And in 2020, after 5 long years with no new Tame Impala, we finally got the 4th studio album, The Slow Rush. This album expanded on the psychedelic pop sound he gave us on Currents. The overarching concept revolves around time's inexorable flow, the tension between nostalgia and presence, and the process of personal reinvention. Kevin sings about his struggles with aging, regrets, closure, and embracing change. He opens up about the recent marriage to his wife Sophie in 2019 and the realization that although he loves being isolated from others, he can't be alone forever. And on the song Posthumous Forgiveness, Kevin revisits his relationship with his late father, expressing his resentment for what he did, but then also wishing that he could still be alive to witness Kevin's musical achievements. It's one of Tame Impala's deepest songs and hits different when you understand the backstory with his father.
Well, the thing about all my albums is that they've gradually gotten more and more personal because I've gradually gotten more confidence to say what I want to say.
After The Slow Rush, the biggest question was, where would Tame Impala go from here? And in 2025, he's back. We're used to seeing the long-haired psychedelic pop star / rock star Kevin, but this time, he's returned with a whole new look. He has short, scruffy hair, wears alien-like sunglasses, and his music, well, it's changed, and this time the change feels more drastic than the last.
I mean, that's always something that I get a kick out of, is like just shaking up expectations.
Yeah.
Even though, like at this point, I was pretty sure it wouldn't like it was kind of just like, it was obvious that I was going to do something electronic, you know, like to me it just sort of made sense. I don't know what the fans kind of think and what they think the trajectory that I'm on is, but you know, for me it was kind of like obvious.
Tame Impala's fifth studio album, Deadbeat, released on October 17th, 2025, marking Kevin's return. But this time, there was a techno twist. But it's not full-on techno. Throughout the album, the psychedelic Tame Impala still bleeds through with amazing harmonies and hypnotic melodies. But just like when Kevin switched up his sound in the past, there are fans who have strong feelings against the change. Many fans long for the old Tame Impala sound. Looking at some opinions on Reddit, one user stated, "Kevin should start doing acid again," and received 200 upvotes. But the reality is, fans can't expect Kevin to stick to the same sound forever. It's evident that Kevin doesn't just make music for the sake of selling records or topping the charts. If he did, then yeah, he'd listen to his fans and other people's opinion when creating his music. But Kevin's never done this. He patiently awaits for the moment he feels ready to create another album, and then does it without letting any outside voices interfere. It's a form of true creative expression. And in my opinion, I've enjoyed listening to the Deadbeat album. It feels refreshing compared to a lot of the new music coming out lately. Kevin offers us yet another look onto what's going on in his mind, circling back to the ideas that he'll never change. He's doomed to be a disaster and has no choice but to surrender to his inner dirtbag. With songs like No Reply, we see Kevin reflect on his isolated self, and then on the opening track, My Old Ways, we see Kevin get nostalgic on who he used to be. In the end, Kevin has made a significant mark on music, and I am so grateful for all of these Tame Impala albums. These days, with social media, there's a constant need to be validated by others. Artists approach their creative process backwards. They put the fans and opinions of others before theirs. It's not about the music itself, it's about how many units they can sell and how many views their song can get on TikTok. But Kevin has never let that be the case for a Tame Impala album, which is what makes him stand out. He's a true artist who creates for the sake of the music. I hope that other artists can take notes from him and apply it to their creative process. Because in all honesty, we need more Kevin Parkers. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know what you think down below in the comments. Did you enjoy the Deadbeat album?